Welcome to the Sens Spotlight Podcast, brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. Before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of your Ottawa Senators. Also, for YouTube gang, please hit that hype button. That really helps out. And please like and subscribe to the show and follow us wherever you get your podcast. That helps us out as well. Last night's game was it felt like the Senators got goalied for another time. There's question marks within the crease once again, and we got it all covered with Pierre McGuire. So it should be an interesting show, and I think you guys will like it. So hit it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Send Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson bursts the speed, gets a shot, and we score! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we are back with Pierre McGuire, who was on his, a little bit of a work trip. So we're excited to have you back, Pierre. And I don't know if it's perfect timing, but I think it will be an interesting game to conclude after Ottawa's 5-3 loss to Detroit last night.
Yeah, you know what? Great to see you, Alex. Great trip to Europe and Ireland in particular. The growth of the women's game is going fantastically well. I'm really excited about that, just to be part of that event and to see all the really skillful young ladies that are playing the game out there was phenomenal. And then we've got the Olympics coming up too, which is the best women's hockey in the world. So I'm really pumped for that. And I think it's an important part of not just the hockey brand, but growing the hockey brand long-term, the development and the growth of women's hockey. So I'm really proud to be part of that. In terms of Ottawa, I got back last night from my trip and I was watching the game. I'm going, they're playing well. They're doing a lot of good things, in the neutral zone. They're doing a lot of good things in the offensive zone. They're paying attention to little things. And then they get a goal, and it gets waved off. So the Nick Cousins goal gets waved off. And it was offside. And it happens right in front of the Detroit bench. So they're all seeing it. They know the puck came out. And I don't know what happened. It's like they let their guard down for just a little bit of time. And you're going to have to help me out on this one. Why does Clevin end up on the right side so much as a left shot D?
I have no clue.
Why does that happen? Because it happens a lot. And that was a big play in the game because Ottawa, I thought, deserved to be in a better position than what they were. And they're down 1-0, and all of a sudden it's kind of like you're in scramble mode.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Green said it last night. I felt we should have been up 3-0, not down.
Yeah, I agree.
And with that Clevin play, there's a kind of a mismatch of kind of a poor clearance, and then they get the puck back and they're on this line change. I swear the Senators are one of the worst teams the last 2 years at effective line changes. And you man the bench in the NHL before, like there must be an art to it. And I don't know, it feels like in the second period Ottawa gets caught in bad line changes consistently, and it happens, sure, but it feels like for the Senators it's more routine, and last year it happened a lot too.
I rely on you so much because I don't get to their practices and you do. But here's what I do know. When I worked for Scotty Bowman, we used to practice line changes. And people are like, they're pro players. What are you doing? You don't need to do that. We did because we were a straight matchup team. We didn't overwhelm you with our defensive prowess as individuals. We overwhelmed you as team, defense in particular, and not making little mistakes and paying attention to face-off battles and making sure we didn't go offside on power plays and making sure we got pucks in deep at the blue line and making sure we got pucks out on a penalty kill, especially on clears off of face-offs. Like, we really paid attention to little details, and that was the influence of Scotty. But the biggest thing we paid attention to as a group with all those star players up front, line changes, because we were a straight matchup team. And we wanted, and Scotty in particular, wanted our star players away from their checkers, and he was able to do it. And I was in charge of running our D, and we wanted to get certain players out against some of their guys. And sometimes we just wanted some of our D to play with our star players. So we would arrange different plans, but we would practice it. I don't know how much Ottawa practices their line change.
I've never seen them work on a line change.
And I would cede to you that is why, especially in the second period, their line changes are no good.
Mm-hmm. And that's the period that's killed them this year.
Yep.
That, like, think about how many times, they're kind of in a game and then the second period goes awry, right? It also doesn't help when you have given up the first goal in 6 straight games, which has been the case for the Senators. And like at this point, people talk about the goaltending. I think the goals themselves, probably maybe that fourth one, and maybe the third one. But for the most part, I want to blame the goalies. But you look at what John Gibson was doing, and he made really good saves all throughout the game. Like it could have been 4-1.
I thought he was the first star of the game.
Yeah.
I thought he was the first star of the game.
Right. And at the end of the day, like if you look, we've said this all year, but when was the last time the Senators got their goaltender winning them the game?
Vegas.
One time. We're at the halfway mark, Pierre. It's happened one time.
Yeah, one time. I agree. It was in Vegas. 100%. Here's the thing. So I'm not trying to make this seem like Ottawa deserves a lot of credit because they lost the game, but they did outshoot Detroit 38-20. And remember one thing: that was a Detroit team that in their previous game against Pittsburgh only had 12 shots. 12 shots at home. You don't think they were angry and ready to go last night? They were, but they still couldn't manufacture a lot of chances. They almost got outshot 2-1 in the game. So I'm looking at that last night going, okay, they're going to put a push on at some point. And that's why I'm saying I'm going to give Ottawa credit. I think there was more good than bad, but it's little things. Like I'll give you an example. The Lucas Raymond goal. Van Riemsdyk beats Cousins on the boards. Puck comes out, Raymond goes to the net. Like just out-muscles them. Puck goes out, go to the net, they score. Could it have been stopped? Yeah. Was there a bit of a screen? Yeah. Lucas Raymond's a good goal scorer. But I'm just saying they're a better team than what their record is.
Yeah.
The Ullmark situation doesn't happen at a really good time. And so I'm looking at the schedule this morning before I come on with the Alex, and I'm going, okay, counting their game with Detroit, they got 4 games in 6 nights. But it's crazy because they're at Utah, altitude, at Colorado, back-to-back, at altitude, home versus Florida. I'm just telling you from experience, because I used to do games like that all the time on national TV, and I wasn't playing. I was broadcasting. That's vicious. That's nobody's like, I don't know how much is written about that. That is a crazy hard road trip. Crazy hard.
They get 1 day off coming from Colorado off of back-to-back.
Yeah, and you know what? That's probably going to be a travel day.
Oh, no, it will be.
So
I believe they're staying in Colorado.
You should. They should.
And then, and even today, right? Like they fly out immediately to Utah, probably sometime this morning, and then like they won't be practicing today, of course. And so it's I mean, I think what you're really alluding to is the fact that this team needs to find a way to get points out of these next 3 games. I don't think expecting them to win all 3 is probably fair, but they can't go 0-3. They have to win. I think that Utah game is going to be really important just to have like a good bounce back, find a way to win, and then maybe the next 2 you just like try to find ways to collect points.
The biggest thing for Utah right now, and this, I know we're talking about Ottawa, but you need to know this because you're going into Utah next. I believe they've played more road games than anybody else in the National Hockey League. So they're going to have an unbelievably friendly home schedule coming up because they've got dumped on pretty good here to start the first 41, 42 games of the year. Their coach is already aware of it, Andre Torrington. He knows. So do they have injuries? Yeah. Do they have a major injury to Logan Cooley? Yes, they do. But they're a team that's starting to feel good. They win against the Rangers. They feel good about themselves going back home. You cannot let them feel good about themselves after the first 10 minutes of that game coming up. You can't. You got to put the boots to them because here's the thing. Colorado's playing in Tampa tonight, and then they go home.
That helps.
And then you get them. So I'm just telling you, so if you put the boots to Utah quick and get them out of the equation, be able to play a 4-line game, which we talk about a lot, then you can go into Colorado. Maybe you got a fighting chance. But if you don't dictate the terms and you got to spend a lot of energy in Utah, you're not winning that game in Colorado. I'm just telling you, you're not.
It's the starts. I sit in the press box between beside Graham Nichols, and we talked about it. It felt like this year. There's like so many times where the Senators, the first 5-10 minutes, and it felt like it was epitomized last night. They completely control play. They probably should have scored 1 or 2 goals, and then bang, out of nowhere, the other team has a lead, right?
Oh yeah,
and
that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
And it's because their goalie is really good and the Sens goalie isn't good enough. I don't put it all on the goalie's heels, but it's just, I think the theme is they always have the second,
you
best
need a
goalie.
big save, right, Alex? Like you need a big save. So I'll give you an example. Van Riemsdyk had a game and a half last night. I give Gibson the first star only because he had to come up with some really good saves at key times in the game, and he was able to do it. Van Riemsdyk was where he always is so good, 4 to 12 feet from in front of the net. He's just unbelievable. And he's always been that way, by the way, Alex. He's always been that way. So I'm watching it and I'm going, okay, I get it. But I didn't like the Van Riemsdyk goal, the spin around.
No.
And I was like, that's one of those where it's got to get stopped. It's to your point. It's got to get stopped.
Yeah. And I think that Raymond one too, like it's a good shot, but it's like you're carrying the play, you're right there.
Yeah.
And then they get it wasn't.
So you see what it does though. It's Raymond, who's a righty, a little pull to the inside, and he gets Shepherd to move just a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's just so I'm comfortable telling you this. That's a guy that's been used to facing American League shooters where that's not happening in the American Hockey League. It's happening that's why Lucas Raymond's an NHLer and has been since he's been 19 years old. That's but you're right. You're 100. That's got to, if that's let's just say that's Marty Brodeur, or let's say that's Patrick Roy, or let's say that's Carey Price, or don't even use a star. Let's just say it's a regular NHL goalie.
If that's John Gibson.
Yeah, let's say it's John Gibson. Perfect. That's stopped.
Yeah. Look at the goals that the Senators scored against John Gibson. It was always on basically a second chance or a backdoor
wide
tap
open net, like the puck from Stutzla. Yeah.
None of them were just getting beat glove side at all, and that happened time and time and time again last night. And I think that's what's so perplexing. And I was thinking about it after the game, talking to some my colleagues. I'm like, how do I write the same thing again? Right? It's like, oh, they're good, but they don't have a good goal. They don't have a good enough goaltender, or their goalies aren't good enough, right? And that's the thing with hockey, is that there's this one weird position that determines a lot of your outcome. It's not the sole determinator of your results, but it has a huge impact, right? Look at Edmonton. If they had a better goaltender for the last 2 years, they might have won the past 2 cups, right? Not that it was all on Skinner, but there's a reason why he was traded, because he wasn't good enough, right? And it feels like the Senators are in that position, and they don't have a Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. They do have Tim Stützle, who's looking pretty good right now. He's been, I would say, the first 20 or so games of the year, I thought Jake Sanderson was this team's best player. And this is not me belittling Jake Sanderson at all. But Tim Stützle has been just unbelievable, and every night he's a dog with a bone with the puck. He's tenacious, he's aggressive, he's trying to make plays at all times. He's staying on maybe a bit too long on shifts, but you kind of give him that leeway. He's just been unreal, and that gives me a bit of I don't know, not relief, but just some solace with this team. Is like they are outplaying teams every night.
So you're right on it. I completely agree. My concern now is you got to play these 4 games. Well, you played one last night, but now you got basically 4 games in 6 nights. And travel and altitude. This is a big. We talked about it, I think, 3 weeks ago. How important. There was a 4-game segment that Ottawa had, and I said they better not go 0 for the schedule, or their season is over. And think about it for 1 second. Let's just say they get 0 for 4 in that one. Their season was over. If you look at the standings right now, there was no way they were getting back in the hunt. So we're getting closer. A few teams now. Ottawa's one of them. You're getting close to almost separation point where it's double digits and it's games played. And I know we've talked about this. There's one line that really can never be crossed, and that is be double-digit points out, 10 or more points out when you get to the All-Star break. This year, the All-Star breaks the Olympics. If you're double-digit points out by the Olympics, you're not making the playoffs. And you're starting to see the teams that are getting there in the West and the East. I thought there'd be a separation point by around January the 10th. So we're getting close for a lot, not for Ottawa, but for the teams that might be out of it. Ottawa's still very much in it, but this next little group of games really matters. It really matters.
I will say the Senators at this point of the season last year were 2 points worse, which is kind of an interesting stat that I surmised.
Think about last year, though. Think about last year for 1 second. Nobody thought Boston would underachieve like they did. Nobody thought the New York Rangers would underachieve the way they did. Nobody thought Pittsburgh was going to underachieve. Pittsburgh was just grossly underachieving. So if you look at what last year, I will cede you that. But I will also tell you, last year was a crazy statistical anomaly that I don't think will happen this year.
And you can argue this year's the same, but in the opposite direction, where there is no parity, or there's so much parity. In this, right? So there's literally every team in the Eastern Conference can legitimately say to themselves, "We have a chance of making the playoffs right now."
No,
and we're in January.
That's fair. That's fair. So here's
I'm not saying they should feel that way, but
no, but you're still alive. You're still alive. I think there's a lot of merit in what you're saying. Here's my biggest thing on this year, though. I know we've talked about this. It's just a memory thing. This is the first time I can honestly say I'm not focusing on the current players or the coaching. I'm focusing in on the manager, the owner, and the pro scouts. This is the year that if you don't get that if you don't get elite managing, you don't get elite pro scouting, and you don't have an owner that wants to spend, nope, not happening. You're not gonna. You can maybe make the playoffs. You're not winning. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to win. And it's to what you just said, and I totally support you, Alex. The parity in the league's never been greater. It's one of these crazy years. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. I've never said it before. I said it in August before the season because I'm looking at the rosters going, oof, there's some bad stuff going on here. And now we're seeing it.
And maybe to that point, let's talk about Staios, because if you look at his moves this offseason, Eller's been hurt. Obviously, he got Giroux back, who's been an unreal player. He's been one of Ottawa's best players. But, he ultimately wanted to stay in Ottawa, so I wouldn't give Staios too much credit for that in a sense. But, I think Spence has been an okay addition, not perfect. But I think for me, the two things that I was surprised about, I was high on Merilainen after last year. Obviously not. I don't feel the same way right now as he's struggling. But they never brought in another NHL caliber goaltender into the roster, and they didn't address the left shot side of the defense. And now, Tyler Kleven is really struggling. And I think if you had a viable guy like we always use Calvin DeHaan because he's an Ottawa guy, but just like a serviceable, good, sixth left shot defenseman. Because right now, Kleven, I think if there was competition on the left side, I don't think he'd be in the lineup every night, right? Because I right now he's been really struggling, and it wasn't just that one play.
No,
last night he has not been himself. If you look at the analytics, they don't like him as well. The eye test doesn't like him. I just feel like they didn't address the goaltending enough, knowing that Allmark's always hurt. In this case, obviously, it's a personal matter, and we sent him his best, but he wasn't a guy he had never played over 49 games in a season, right? You have Merilainen, who had played 12 games last year, and you didn't bring a viable goalie. You could have gone after Alex Line, you could have gone after another slew of goaltenders. There's always a musical chairs of them. So to me, that's on Staios, and and those types of moves aren't huge money moves. You pay a backup goalie $2 million. That doesn't change your life, right? Same with a 6-7 left shot defenseman. Those grow on trees. You can get them pretty easily for $1 million, $1.5 million. So I'm not saying it's all Staios' fault, but there was two areas that I was concerned about going into the season, and he didn't address them. And right now, I feel like they're letting him down.
Fair, all fair. So here's what I would say is I thought there was a huge need on the right side of their defense. I agree with you. Tyler hasn't been great, but when Tommy's healthy and Jake's healthy and if Tommy's playing, or Tyler, excuse me, if Tyler's playing, let's say 14 to 16 minutes, he's good. My question about him is, and I don't get it. I see him on the left side or on the right side so much, and I don't understand it. Like, stay on the left side. And I don't know if that's something they're working with on all the guys to do that, but it doesn't work. I'm telling with him in particular. He's not comfortable on that. And I watched him play calls. Trust me, I went to go watch Dakota play Duluth, and he was playing on the right side once. I was like, ooh, that's not happening in the NHL. We're not doing that to him. You're going to stay on the left side. So I'm just saying, like, there's certain things – I thought going in, Ottawa was one team that had to be proactive getting pro players on the right side of their D, especially with Jensen's injury situation.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to do it, or they chose not to do it. That's, again, Hamonic moved on. Like, there were guys, Bernard Docker moved on. There were guys moving out, but there wasn't anybody moving in. And that's hard. And that's why I know one of our first shows, I said to you, if there was an organizational need at one point that had to be addressed, it was the right side of that defense. And it not.
And you know what? You've changed me on that, because I think at the beginning of the year, I was more worried about the top six.
Yep.
And now there's a reason why Travis Green rotates his line so much, is because they're missing a player in that top six for sure.
Yeah.
At the same time, they're 11th in goals for. Like, they're scoring enough goals and creating enough chances offensively that to win games, right? The problem is they always have a mistake on defense outside of really the Sanderson Zoo pairing, right?
Right.
And I love Nick Jensen. I love talking to him. Really smart, interesting guy. But sometimes his decision making, I'm just like, why are you so aggressive and misplaced in the wrong places? And like, for me, it's weird. Like, at the beginning of the year, you could tell he was coming off the injury and he felt like a half step slow. Now it feels the opposite, where it's like the body and mind are not in sync. And I think you're right that this team, in a vacuum, they need another right shot defenseman in their top four to just move everyone back. And I really feel it right now with Jensen. And good for him. He's had a wonderful career, but he's not it right now. I don't like the way he's playing. I feel like he's a liability all the time, especially with Shabbat, who always has like a defensive gaffe in his game. As good as I think he's playing the best hockey of his career, but still, he's not a defensive defenseman, right? So they're in a pickle. Like, I feel this weird malaise of, okay, where are we with this team? How do we explain it out, and what do they do? And I think right now it's on Steve Staios to add a goalie right now. And by the deadline, if they're still have like a decent chance of making the playoffs, add on the right side.
Just curious. I was over in Europe when he said it. I was following it pretty close. But he said, we'll know when we're ready to compete.
Contend. Yeah, I asked him that, which
I know you did. That's why I'm asking the question now. I know it was you. I wasn't sure I was in love with that answer.
No. We'll compete. We'll contend when we're ready to contend.
We'll contend when we're ready to contend. Yeah. No. What does that mean?
I think, again, this is me like armchair. Steve Staios is a wizard at saying nothing, in press conferences. He's very good at, but I think for him, where he was coming from is he was trying to put, I think for him, he never wants you. We remember his predecessor, right, who had these bold proclamations about, we'll be a competitive team and we're going to have meaningful games and we're just a team. And I think Staios wants to do the exact opposite. He doesn't want to have any big proclamations of, we're going to be a playoff team. We're going to, we're going for a cup this year, because he feels like that's bad PR and that's not good to kind of state that publicly. And so I think the way he was trying to say is that we're not going to try to contend this year just to contend. We'll contend when we're ready. I don't know if it landed. I don't think sometimes kind of PR speak backfires, because sometimes it doesn't actually give you the explanation that you want, if that makes sense. But
they're in a bad neighborhood to be speaking that way. And the only reason I say that is Montreal's not getting any weaker, and Buffalo's not going to get any weaker, and Detroit's not get. I can tell you, Detroit's definitely not getting any weaker, and Boston will continue to evolve. They've got some good stuff going on in Providence right now, and the trade with Buffalo or with Toronto for Fraser Minton's turning out to be an unbelievable heist. And it's not just that. If you look at this kid Steves that's playing on their team too in Boston, he was part of that because they were watching Fraser Minton so much. They picked Steves up as a free agent because their scouts were like, well, this guy's really good, but this other guy's going to be a free agent. We can get him for nothing. And that's what they did. And he's a New Hampshire kid, which is even better for them. So that's turning out to be, but they got some guys. Like they got a kid,
Higgins, they have
Providence, but there's a kid, Lashmelis, who plays. He's a Latvian kid. I saw him play as an under-20 player in Finland. Like, he's a really good player. Really good player. I watched him play at UMass too for former Senators assistant Greg Carvel at UMass. And I'm just telling you, like, they got guys coming. So
the sense of
and looking at the neighborhood that Ottawa's in, that statement that he made, and that's what brought it up to me, Alex, is when he said that to you, I was like, I hope he's looking at the other teams in the neighborhood, because they're not like saying, okay, we'll contend when we're ready to contend. They're like, we're going to contend now, and we're going to make moves now.
And think about it. Like, if they had good goaltending, one, they'd be in a playoff spot. Two, if they added a right shot defenseman, why wouldn't they be able to go to a cup final? Like, look how open the East is. I'm not saying that they should.
But I agree with you. I agree.
Outside of Florida, there is no team in the league, in the Eastern Conference, that the Senators should be like, I don't know if we can beat these guys.
You know what? The only team in the league that I don't think anybody can beat right now is Colorado. And I know they lose, but I mean, in a 7-game series, I'm not sure it's going to be that easy to beat them. I'm just being frank.
Sure. But still, like,
everybody else is beatable, including Florida, by the way. I watched the Rangers beat Florida the other night. I didn't go to bed till 5 a.m. watching that game because it was an 8 o'clock start. It was brutal. But anyways,
the life of the grind.
Yeah, I was grinding.
We need to have like a docu-series of you just like grinding tape at random times in Ireland or like Providence or, you know.
We would have laughed yesterday. I could just, because you just brought it up. So we're flying back, my wife and I, and we had a layover at JFK. And she goes, what are you doing on your phone? Because we were sitting in the corner of a place, the Delta Sky Lounge in New York. So I go, I'm breaking down tape of a World Junior situation. She goes, are you out of your mind? Out of your mind? I'm like, well, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, it takes one to know it. I'm kidding. Yeah. So I can relate to this. I have definitely gone to parties and I'm like watching, like, okay, I'm gonna watch this game or whatever. So I can relate, Pierre. But I think you hit it on the, you know, you hit it right there. Is like the window is now. Like the window is not in 2 years. It's now, right? And I like sometimes I hate panic trades, but sometimes I think the panic trade is actually like it's the Band-Aid that you need to put on the huge, you know, cut that you have that could be life-threatening, right? Like you need to at a certain point kind of have a Band-Aid solution. And right now they need to add a goalie like tomorrow, like today, like in 5 minutes. And then after that, at the deadline, they need to put their chips in and get a right shot defenseman. And just because I think if you're right, if they go out and get a big right shot defenseman, I think they're set. You know, I don't like Bruce Garriock was reporting they're thinking of trading Zub. Like that
for what?
For what? Like for me, in my opinion, and you know, Bruce knows his shit. I'm not discounting his reporting at all, but it's like, well, then you need another Artem Zub, right? Like then
you don't. That's a problem. That's why we talk about it. There's just not enough depth in the whole environment around Ottawa in terms of right shot D. You're right. That'd be interesting. I don't know what they would do then. Like,
teams drafted 2 right shot defensemen. Logan Hensler might have been Team USA.
Yeah, you know, but I'm just going to say this. The media loves to blow guys up like in a positive way. He got overhyped. And I'm very comfortable saying this because I watch it. I'm on the Hobie Baker nomination committee and selection committee. I watch a lot of college hockey games. College hockey is down this year. It is not where a year ago college hockey was crazy good. It was insanely good. It's down this year. It is. It's down because there's no more COVID kids. There's no more fifth-year players. And for whatever reason, a lot of guys left last year. Like last year, the departure points for college players for most teams, anywhere from 3 to 6 players per team. That's a lot of guys. So college hockey. So Hensler's been getting all this rave review stuff. He had a rough World Junior. Like he had a rough World Junior.
I watched Zane Parekh. I think he's a bit of a flight risk, and maybe maybe a robot risk after those comments. But you know what? I will give him credit. I love when guys want to speak their mind. I will never complain.
No, you should
But him, Bouillon, Dickinson, they're all playing in the NHL or have, and Steve Steo said that Carter Yakimchuk could have played this season if he hadn't been hurt in the NHL. And to me, my, what detector was like, I don't know. I believe that. I think that's kind of positive spin because I know guys in Belleville a little bit. You would know way better than me, Pierre, but no one's saying, oh, this kid needs to be in the NHL. Like he's right there right now. And if you look at their last 2 draft classes, Hensler might have been one of the worst players, on Team USA. He's a right shot defenseman, and Carter Yakimchuk is like, I think David Bell, before he, unfortunately was relieved of his duties, was on the Coming In Hot podcast and talked about how he's really working on a defensive game, but he's, basically like a work in progress. Like he's not ready, which is fine. But you may have missed / picked the wrong guy twice in back-to-back years, and it's still early. Like they're still kids. I'm not gonna, but you talk about assets and going all in. If you don't draft well, those assets depreciate pretty quickly, right? And
look at Montreal. Here's the tail of the tape. Look at what Montreal's drafted, and look at the youth that they've traded for. So they've moved a lot of older bodies for younger players. One of them is Nick Suzuki. They traded Max Pacioretty for Nick Suzuki. Pretty good. They got a number 1 center. They got a guy that's on Canada's Olympic team. Pretty good move. You think about the drafting of Demi Doff. You think about the drafting of Jacob Fowler. You think about the drafting of Lane Hudson. You think about the drafting of Caden Gooley in the 2020 draft. Like I can throw it at you ad nauseum. It's without being rehearsed. They have done, whether it's Marty Lapointe, whether it's Nikki Bobroff, they have done as a management team and a scouting staff, they've done a fantastic job with their assets. They've cultivated their assets amazingly well. Pascal Vincent is a perfect guy to coach that team. And I don't know how much longer they're going to have him. He might move on to an NHL situation, and I'd be happy for him. But I can tell you that starting with the Boucher draft, the 2020 draft was a home run for Ottawa. You cannot ever take anything away from them. The 2020 draft, bingo, like home run. But you start with the Boucher draft and you start going forward from there. There were a lot of swings,
I will say, I've thought about this before. Like, I think Pierre Dorion, he gets a lot of credit for the rebuild. If he doesn't hit, you have top 5 picks, you have to hit them. And to his credit, he hit them out of the park. Yep. You look at the rest of his draft, outside of maybe Pinto, Batherson, those are good picks at where they were. Ridley Gregg's a good player. Like I really like Ridley Gregg, but it's not like he's outperforming a 28th overall draft selection. Cleven's an NHL player, 2nd round pick, good. But you look at Ostapchuk, not really an NHL player. You trade him, didn't have a lot of value. Ben Roger out of the league quickly. Elias, and I have no clue if he's ever going to even sniff the NHL. And you picked him ahead of Cole Hudson, right?
I'm just telling you,
for me right now, the biggest worry is it's not that I profess if I was the head scout that I would make all these great decisions, but right now this team needs to draft better, not just, you can't go back and redo the drafts, but this year, like, I wonder if Steos makes changes or some changes to the process in which they determine, player evaluations, but they're missing on their drafts, and I think that's really hurting them right now too.
Well, they don't have any ammunition to go play in the game.
Yeah.
So the biggest trade that he made, Steven Stales, is he traded Josh Norris for Dylan Cousins.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced to this day, and I've never talked to Steve about it. I've never talked to Michael Landauer about it. But I would say the biggest reason why they did that, they wanted to get the players' attention. And they wanted to scare everybody straight, saying, you guys like it here so much. This is what happens if we don't think you're going to help us long term. You go somewhere else. And most guys that I know in Ottawa love playing in Ottawa. I very seldom have heard guys say, you know what, I don't like it here and I don't want to stay here. Once you get there, and that's what's heartbreaking for me. Like, I was all in. As soon as I got the job, I bought a home. Like 2 days after I signed a contract, I bought a home. And we sold our place right away in Connecticut, and we moved there right away because I just loved the marketplace. And I thought we were going to do some really good things. But I would just say that you gotta look at it and say, how are they going to be better than this team? Because they don't have enough assets right now. They just don't. And I think that they got to recognize that. I know everybody wants to put a good spin on it. Sometimes the best spin is honesty.
Yep.
We got work to do.
That's all you got to say. The one thing, Travis Green always talks about that. He's always honest with his players. I wonder if Steve Staios needs to be honest with the scouting staff and maybe with his team for that matter, and be like, okay, where are we at? What can we do? And, honestly, we're not getting saves. Okay, let's do something about it. Because I don't think that's the hardest thing in the world in terms of just bringing another quality NHL goalie in. But, yeah, they're in a pickle. And I think as time passes, the Pierre Dorion age will age poorly. And I think last year it felt like everything Staios did turned into gold, like had a bit of that Midas touch. I think that's wearing off pretty quickly. And I think in the next, for the rest of this season heading into next year, I think Staios has a lot of big decisions that will really affect the way he's viewed in his tenure in Ottawa, which, probably is very long because I think it's Steve Dangle who coined it, but like the most secure job in Canada is being a Canadian GM. It feels like they always stay for like 10 years and, great pull by Steve Dangle there. But I feel that a little bit with Staios. I don't think he's going to I think he's pretty close with the ownership. So if you have ownership, you're not going anywhere. But I think people are going to start questioning like his decisions, more and more as the season maybe turns into a bit of an abyss. If this team doesn't make the playoffs this year, I'll tell you this right now, I believe the clock will start to tick. Because again, it comes down to assets. And if you're really being realistic, Buffalo's got major assets. Detroit's got major assets. Montreal's got major assets. Tampa's rebuilding their arsenal very quickly. Florida Panthers are not afraid. Kids want to go play there. So free agents coming out of college is going to be a next big growth area. It is. Anybody that's not paying attention to college free agency, they're doomed to fail. They're doomed to fail because it's going to be the next big growth industry in the National Hockey League. So you better know what you're doing. And you better be plugged in. You better not be just buying guys based on numbers. You better be buying guys based on character, coachability, and the ability to get bigger and get better. Because that's going to be the next big growth industry in the National Hockey League. Just for sure. Yeah, and hopefully Steve Staios can do that. At the same time, I will maybe end on this note. I do think the Senators are a good team. So I think they are way better than the record, right? Yep. And so, I think even if they miss the playoffs, I wouldn't tear this to shreds. If it let's say they go to the end of the season and they finish second last, third last in team save percentage, and they play pretty well, they're resilient. Like even last night, like they could have easily given up after going down 3-0, and they made a big push. They could have easily come back and won that game the way they played, right? So I don't really, in a lot of ways, kind of worry about their internal kind of grit and toughness and skill for that matter. It's just kind of making the puzzle pieces work. And as you said, goalie. So is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm pumped for the Utah game. I can't wait. And I can't wait for our whole week of shows. We got a lot of work to do this week.
A lot of work. I need to be up till 4 a.m. watching Nick Schmaltz tape.
Hey, what a great assist.
He's a good player, yeah.
What a great assist to Dursey by Nick Schmaltz last night against the Rangers. It was very special.
He's a player I really like.
You know what? It's interesting because he will always be a really good player in the league because he's got really good feet. He's got good, strong physical attributes athletically. He can really skate. He's a Dakota, went to Dakota. He's a kid that grew up in Wisconsin. But the biggest thing that I think scouts will remember, the Chicago Blackhawks picked him ahead of David Pastrnak. And that will all, I'm telling you, like in the scouting fraternity, it doesn't make the papers. It's not a sexy story. Sure. But if you think about that for 1 second, it's like the one, I'll go back to 1990 draft. Trevor Kidd went at 11. Marty Brodeur went at 20. Just telling you.
I always find that backdrop so interesting.
Yeah,
I will say, I'm a big basketball fan, and what I find hilarious, and I don't know, this probably happens in the NHL, but less maybe publicly. There's always like teams like, oh, we really liked Kawhi Leonard at 15, but like we just couldn't draft him. You know, we didn't feel he was, at that pick. And I feel like there must be so many guys. It's like, we love David Pastrnak, but we couldn't at whatever 22 wherever he was drafted, but so we went with Nick Schmaltz. Like there's like almost this like positive spin or like we really liked him. It's like, well, of course you're gonna say that now. Yeah, David Pastrnak scored 60 freaking goals, right? So
look at here's the last skill testing one for everybody out there that's a hockey junkie. Go look at the 2003 draft and go look at the players that were drafted from the second round to 205th, where Joe Pavelski went. You will be mortified at how many guys were missed that were fantastic players in the league. Fantastic players. It's an unbelievable. It is the potpourri of depth players that came into the league where most people said short careers that turned out to be stars. It's an amazing exercise to do.
I'd love to be in those scout rooms just for like one day. I know the friends would never let me. They'd be like, "Why are you letting the enemy into our confines?" But anyways, but Pierre, thanks so much for taking the time to do this.
Great to be back.
It's going to be a great week of hopefully, it won't be too many L's that we talk about, but it should be a fun one, and I'm really excited to talk to you after the Utah game. So
thanks, my man.
Thank you for watching, and we'll be back soon.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.